Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for MusiCounts' first ever virtual town hall. I see already in the comments people are joining from all across Canada, so I'm so thrilled that you're all going to be a part of what is an extremely important conversation today. My name is Nick Godsoe, and I work on the MusiCounts team. So this town hall is part of a broader MusiCounts initiative that we launched a few weeks ago called MusiCounts Learn. And the real purpose of MusiCounts Learn is to diversify the ways that MusiCounts supports music education in Canada. So right now, of course, we're focused on supporting teachers in their journey through teaching music from a distance, teaching music remotely. So to discuss this incredibly important issue, we have 4 teachers from all across Canada, and here they are to help us understand, what's going on, what people from across the country are doing. So hopefully we can all kind of come together and move ahead as music educators and supporters of music education in this country. So I'll throw it to the crew to introduce themselves. I think maybe we should move west to east. So Mark, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Mark Reid. I am a teacher here in Vancouver. I specifically right now am a district resource teacher for career education, but have worked at the Ministry of Education and as a music teacher for years at Vantech.
Terrific. Kim, hello.
Hi, I have been teaching probably the longest out of all of these people. This is my 32nd year. 28 of them I've spent here in Alberta, teaching middle school in Rocky Mountain House.
Lovely. Thanks, Kim. And Dianne?
I'm Dianne Winmill, and I teach high school band predominantly at North Hastings High School in Bancroft, Ontario, 25 years.
Terrific. Thanks, Dianne. And Andrew?
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Mercer, and I'm coming from the snowy East Coast today in Newfoundland. I've been teaching online in various forms since the mid-90s, and since the early 2000s, I've been teaching high school music entirely online to students in rural and isolated communities all around our province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for donating your time, donating your expertise and your perspectives for this event. It's incredible. So here's how it's going to work. We have 3 major topics that we want to discuss today, and they're going to move gradually from each of your own, individual experience with remote education to talking more broadly about what the lasting impact of COVID-19 and what that will mean for music education once schools reopen, whenever that may be. And then after we discuss those 3 topics, we're going to have some time to discuss some of the questions that are submitted by people who are watching. So for those of you who are watching, please write any questions that you have for these 4 exceptional educators in the comments, or you can tweet at us at MusiCounts, and we will be sure to discuss a couple of those towards the end of the show. So let's kick things off. The first thing that I want to discuss, like I just said, is what has your experience so far been with teaching remotely? What's gone well? What are the things that are challenging? What are you doing to address those things? So Dianne, let's start with you.
Okay, so I really like to look at things with a silver lining, and I think as music teachers who teach in a traditional environment in a school system where you've got concerts and trips and fundraising and all of that stuff going on, sometimes we do run around like chickens with our heads cut off. At least that's my experience for 25 years. What this has done for me, and I think for my program, is it's really allowed me to take a breath and kind of like self-reflect on what I have been doing and what I can be doing to support my students. And what I've really discovered is that I've had a chance here to really connect one-on-one, in a lot of cases better, with a lot of the students who maybe were marginalized in our music program previously, because maybe they weren't, maybe the most outgoing student, maybe they were a quieter student, but in this kind of distance learning capacity, I'm really finding that my relationship building with most of my students has been improved. And I think that a lot of teachers around the country who've been teaching at a distance would say that allowing the students to have lots of choice to cater to all of the different learning styles and interests out there has really been effective. I use a chart where I allow students to choose how they're going to choose to use their time each week for learning. And whether that's music theory or general music assignments or playing their instrument if they have it at home, or playing a different instrument, maybe guitar or piano if they don't have a band instrument. Also including now some music technology stuff that I've been able to get free music, free memberships online during this time. I've included those as well. So when students have a choice of how they're going to spend their time, they have definitely been more engaged. And that's my experience, and I would expect that in a lot of areas, when teachers give their students the chance to engage in a way that they find fun and interesting, they're getting great results from a lot of those students.
Awesome. Thanks, Dianne. And Kim, I know that you're kind of working with some similar things, because I know, Dianne, we've talked about how a lot of your students don't have access to reliable internet or certain technologies and stuff like that. And Kim, I know that's something that you referenced as well. And you had a really cool way of keeping your students motivated with performing. Did you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I find that it's great that Dianne looks at it so positively. That's wonderful, all the things that she's doing. I find it harder to be inspirational from a distance. So I guess what I want my kids to do is, like her, is I want them to play and not necessarily practice. So anytime I put something out to them, I always use that language. Please play, or consider playing this music, so that they're looking at it as more of a positive thing, and it's not stressing them out, because lots of my students have, demonstrated some high anxiety. So what I do with my middle school students, because I'm fortunate in that they were all able to take their instruments home, is I give them playing challenges. I put on easy music, fun music, themes from different TV shows, and I give them challenges. One of my most successful challenges was their pet challenge. I got some really interesting videos, because I think that's what I'm finding my kids miss the most, is being able to perform. And so they've performed for their goats and their donkeys, because this is a rural area, and it's something that they've really bought onto. The band parents have provided some small prizes for them, and it's kind of my way of trying just to get them to keep playing their instruments in these uncertain times.
That's awesome. Thanks, Kim. And Andrew, you're someone who's been teaching music online for a while. So what's it like kind of being someone who specializes in online music education in this time now where everyone is pivoting to this moment?
Well, thank you, Nick. And well, first of all, it's very exciting to hear Kim and Dianne speak of what they're doing. And I think we need to do a bit more Baba Black Sheep for our students with farms. I think that's a good idea. But really, in thinking about that and what Dianne was saying, the idea of fluidity in online learning is something that came to my mind when Dianne is talking, because a lot of the times when I explain online learning to people, as somebody I've been doing for almost 20 years now, when I explain online learning, the first thought is that it's a static thing, that, I'm going to take my classes online and then that's it. But it's not. It's not static. It's a very fluid thing. And like Dianne was saying, she's looking at ways that she can work with students in different ways and foster new relationships that she probably couldn't have done before, or just wasn't feasible before. Now it is. And we're hearing Kim, fluid. If kids are playing for their animals and things like that, it only goes to show that this online learning is not static. It's not asynchronous. It's something that's going to be different every day. It's going to be different for all the kids, and all of our own contexts are going to be different. So we need to embrace that fluidity of every student's need. And we know that in this time, students are coming to us with unique needs. Absolutely. And we need to be open to that. But I wouldn't see that as a daunting task. I see that as something that's very exciting, because while some teachers out there in our country may think I'm a square peg and I've got to fit into a round hole, no. we're all made of jello here, you know, and it's so fluid, the online learning environment, that you will find your way a lot easier than you think. So I would say that my advice to people as they go forward is look for that fluidity. Look for that fluidity in making the medium fit to what your strengths are. And look to the fluidity in your students. Everybody's going to be different. Every class is going to be a little different. Every student's needs are going to be a little different. And that's exciting. We certainly have some foundations that we have to build on, but always know that we have movement.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. And Mark, I know that we had talked a little bit about, you know, when teachers are kind of coming into this new world of executing remote music education, it can be very overwhelming because there is, you know, apps out there, you know, that are almost endless. So what are your suggestions to teachers as they're kind of entering this, what may be a new mode of education for them?
Yeah, this is such an overwhelming time because you know, sometimes there can be a little bit of some professional guilt that we think about what we heard in a staff meeting a few months ago about how our district was offering a particular technology platform for us to explore. Then we didn't, because we didn't have time then, and now we really have to dive into it now. I think that there can be a little bit of that guilt at the same time as we're faced with a reality that's happening in the moment, and we have to figure things out in the moment. And not to differentiate ourselves too much from our colleagues in other subject areas, but you know, music teachers have learned over many years to respond in the moment for students. And if you think about what happens in any kind of rehearsal, any kind of a class, we're constantly assessing what's going on, what a student might need. And I think that those kind of those professional competencies we already possess. This is a great opportunity for us to show the rest of education how we already use those. And especially considering that our curriculum is in every province, every territory is full of little gems that we could be going and pulling out right now, just to diversify what we've been doing, that we're looking at performance and we're looking at engagement with music, maybe tied to careers, maybe tied to self-reflection, you know, tied to some other skill development as well.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. A theme that I've really noticed as people are talking is that when this may be perceived as a time where there are such limitations on what you're able to do as music educators, what I'm hearing from all of you is that there's actually a lot of opportunity here, a lot of opportunity to try something new. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to share with regards to anything new that they've learned, either, you know, as teachers or about their students or anything like that?
I've actually had a few different small group sessions with my kids, and kind of like what Dianne said about having relationships or reaching out or getting to know your kids on a different level. It is often the kids who, like, you know, your best alto saxophone player might not be reaching out and doing your challenges, but, you know, some of the kids who are sort of been flying under the radar will do that. They're also, I think, really like lonely, and they don't really understand how to connect in some ways. They're so used to Snapchat and all these different things. And so I've tried to connect a few of them on things like tea time and coffee talk, which sounds really lame, but I think they just don't know how to reach out to each other. And although it is still technology, at least they're getting to have a conversation face to face. So, you know, I would really recommend, you know, teachers like connecting with their kids in those small groups, whether it's your clarinet section or your, you know, your jazz band, just so that kids get a chance to talk to each other. I think sometimes they don't know how to do that on their own, and band, as being obviously important educationally, is also a very social environment for kids.
Something that I've done a few times is I've just kind of been really honest with some of my students and said, hey, I want some of you to try this new piece of technology. I have no idea what I'm doing yet. Can you help me? And so a few things that I've thrown out, I found like a speed songwriting PDF. So any of the students who were doing, you know, some guitar submissions or piano submissions, and I could tell they knew a few chords, and I was kind of getting the feeling that they were getting really self-reflective during this time off school. I thought, oh, maybe they can write some songs. So anyway, I just kind of gave them the opportunity. I said, hey, I found this thing. Do you want to try it? Let me know how it goes. And they've been really, I think, I don't know, maybe a little honored that I would ask them. And some of them have really flown with that. And yeah, I basically asked them, will you be guinea pigs and you know, check in and let me know how it's going. And I think they find that really exciting. So that's another thing you can try, you know, any music teachers out there, you can try with your students. Don't be intimidated. Don't think you've got to have it all figured out before you give it to your students, because they'll sometimes figure it out faster than we can.
Yeah, and Andrew here, if I can add to that, and Bill, have something too that Mark said earlier. It can be overwhelming, all these new tools that we have, and our districts, our ministries of education, our departments of education across the country, they have all these tools that they can recommend that we try. And then we go to the net and we see all these other things people are trying, and there can be a certain level of, like Mark said, about guilt, about like, oh, what am I going to do? My advice to people right now, music teachers out there, well, all teachers out there that are being challenged with going online, is to take some time to reflect and to think about what it is that, like, what's some philosophical foundations of what you do and why you do and how you interact with your students. And then, you know, after you do a little bit of reflection, then start looking at some of the tools that are out there. Because there are so many really cool things, and like Dianne was saying, that I'm looking forward to seeing what that is, that speed writing thing. But there's so many tools out there that it can be overwhelming. Trust me, it can be. And even me, I live online every day. I mean, I've been teaching online for like 17 years in high school, and I can get overwhelmed as well. So don't be overwhelmed. Take some time to sit back and think about what it is that you want to achieve. Certain things in the curriculum you'll want to achieve by using some method, and some other method. But don't rush into trying all this software, because you'll end up being overwhelmed, like Mark was saying. So.
One thing that I just wanted to ask you guys is, from my perspective, and of course, you know, I'm part of a community where, you know, we all love music. Music is a means where we heal together, where we share our feelings with each other. Do you get the sense that in these times that must be so unusual and so weird for your students, do you find that music is playing a different role in their lives as students? And is it helping them kind of get through these times in new ways that are maybe unexpected?
I think that we just look to what we're seeing on TV as an example. You know, that there are sing-along hours with celebrities bringing music into people's homes. We think about the ways that you know, kids are connected to their own music, but maybe they're hopefully also connecting with their parents' music or their grandparents' music. And one of the things that I imagine right now is that when we talk a lot in BC about the First Peoples principles of learning, and one of the really key principles is about intergenerational connection. And you know, I've suggested to colleagues and to students, take this time right now to get to know the music of your parents, of your grandparents, of your extended family, and share. Because music is something that so often is very central to our own identity, and it's a way that we can help relate. So I might have one interest and someone else has a different interest. Well, now's the time to share some of those and really talk about it. You know, if we have to have this time together in our homes, why not make the most of it in a way that we can learn to connect on a better level or deeper level with each other?
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Any other thoughts about that?
That's very philosophical, Mark. Well said. Very well said. I love it. I love the idea of taking this opportunity to explore different things and to explore new things. And what better thing to explore than all the music of all of our country, and all the ages and all the backgrounds, and there's so much to explore. This is a wonderful time. I mean, really, I know we are in the weirdest time that we could have ever imagined. No doubt about it. But you know what? We have some time now. Let's use this time to maybe hit a little bit of a reset button, and to give some time to reflect, think about where we can go, what the advantages are going to be by having the opportunity to reset to some degree. And use this time to reflect.
And Dianne, like, are your students responsive to this? Do you think, are your students engaged and energized about music? Do you have to kind of work for it, or is it kind of happening naturally?
Well, in the situation we find ourselves right now, there are so many challenges that some families have, and so we aren't going to probably get 100% buy-in from everybody, because I mean personally, I have a lot of students who have been working ever since the shutdown happened, so I'm not expecting them to engage fully as much as some of their peers, but I'm finding some of my students who were maybe at risk are engaging a lot more than I expected. And that is some of the best stuff of my day is, when I get a photograph of a handwritten assignment, that it's really taken an effort for that student to submit it. And kind of going back to what Andrew and Mark were both saying about taking the time to investigate, the music of their parents and their grandparents. I had some engagement from a student who I hadn't had, a ton of engagement from previously. He interviewed his grandfather who, was growing up in the late 60s music scene, talking about, the first Beatles album he bought. And was one of an early assignment that I gave about, interview somebody about their musical tastes and then compare them to your own musical tastes. And yeah, this student found out all about their grandfather and found out that their grandfather played guitar and wrote songs. And, and that kind of evolved to me saying to this student, back to the PDF songwriting, I just sent it to him today. I said, hey, try writing a song. I think your grandpa and you could even maybe collaborate on this. So, he learned a lot about his grandpa from just doing that simple interview. So, I'm finding a lot of engagement in a lot of areas. And, it's not perfect and it never will be probably, but, I've been pretty excited by what I've seen. Do I miss playing? Do the students miss playing as an ensemble? Absolutely. But, we're trying to make the best of it, aren't we?
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Dianne. Any more comments about this topic before we move on? Any final words?
Well, if I could say another... Oh, so you go ahead, Kim. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm involved in a every 2 week Zoom with a bunch of women band directors, and one of the things I find is there are people who listen to all of people like the four of us on here, and I think sometimes feel like they're like less than. So I really want to say, from my perspective, I struggle a lot. I will get to my computer one morning and feel like I've been completely useless, and I feel like I'm not reaching my kids. Why aren't they engaging more? And like Dianne said, they all have challenges of their own. And then the next day, it's excellent. So if there's anybody out there feeling like, oh, geez, I may be not quite up to par, please don't feel that way, because we're all in the same boat. And if you do end up with some lack of engagement, try not to take it personally, just because of what, like Dianne said, some of the kids are going through some difficult challenges.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Yeah, and something else, something I'm seeing from that, Kim, is online. The engagement is very quantifiable. It's easier for a kid to fly under the radar in a face-to-face setting, where they, in an online setting, if they're going to send in that email, they got to send in the email. It's very quantifiable to see when people are engaged. And I'm seeing a lot of teachers who are, like you're saying, there are a lot of teachers who are feeling, I'm not doing a great job because my students are not as engaged as I think they should be. And so, but really, if they stand back and, they look at it, they're probably, considering the circumstances, too, that we're in today, they're probably doing a great job. Fantastic. And the engagement is probably there. But it's so polarizing online, because things are quantifiable. The student has to push the post button, has to push send button, has to push a button to verify that I am engaged. Whereas online, they can be sitting in your classroom like this, and you'll never really know if they are engaged. It's very quantifiable online.
Yeah, so that's a great point.
I feel like, as you're saying that, Andrew, it needs to be said in every session like this for all of our colleagues in any part of the world. Whatever you're doing right now is enough. It is
Agreed.
meeting
Yes.
someone's needs. And there
Agreed.
are going to be students whose needs are so significant, are very complex, not necessarily complicated, and we'll have to find ways to keep getting there, sure. But whatever we are all doing right now is enough. This is emergency teaching. We can't look to our mentor teachers and have them say, well, this is how you do this. If we can find a teacher who had access to Microsoft Teams during the Spanish flu, then we could ask them what they did. But that possibility doesn't exist. We're figuring this out as we go along. So I want everyone to know everywhere, whatever you're doing, it's enough. And the fact that you've come here this morning, nearly 150 people, to participate and share in some idea exchange, what you're doing right now is the most incredible professional development that you've directed for yourself, that you've pursued on your own, and you're going to get through this with your students because you're making an effort to learn the same way that you're expecting them to.
Thanks, Mark.
Very, very well
great.
said, Mark. And I want to throw out something else too for all the people out there that are listening and listening after the fact, because I know a lot of people are going to be watching this later. Thank you very much for all your efforts on this. I really appreciate your service that you're doing and for even taking the time for this professional development. And I will say, for everybody out there watching this, please add me on social media, email me, find me, ask me anything. I will do everything in my power to help you out. If you're trying to get online and you're going, oh my, I don't know how to make how do you use Google Meet? I don't know. Well, you know what? Ask me, and I will do everything I can to help you too.
We're going to post Andrew's personal phone number on our Facebook right after
Do it.
this.
Do it.
All right, we got to move on. Now we're going to take a step a little bit more broad. I want to talk about, the situation at your school more broadly, the situation at your district, the situation in your province. I want each of you to maybe talk a little bit about music education's role in how your province is approaching music education, how your board is approaching distance learning. So Dianne, why don't we start with you again?
Okay, so I'll start with the big news for Ontario. Minister Lecce, our Minister of Education, just announced today that we will be maintaining distance learning until the end of June. So we will not be returning to our classrooms until September. So that being said, I'll go to the board level. Our board really early on decided that, and I think, from a ministry mandate, student wellness and engagement was more important than curriculum right off the bat. They wanted to make sure that everybody was okay, that students were feeling all right, that families were being taken care of. So as far as music education went, for high school students, we were to provide 3 hours per week of music learning, as were all of the other courses. And in my district, we are semestered, so each student in high school would receive a total of 12 hours per week, and 3 of those hours would be music learning. So for me, right off the bat, I thought, okay, well, 3 hours, let's split that into 3 categories. And I asked them to do an hour of theory because they had their theory books at home, an hour of playing an instrument. So that could be their band instrument, or if they forgot to take it home, a guitar or a piano. If they didn't have an instrument at home, then they were exempt from that in the early days while we tried to figure out what we were doing. And then we created, our board was really great because they not only said mental health is important, that's our focus, engagement is important, that's our focus, or another one of our focuses, I guess. They said, make everything low tech. Don't make students feel like they have to have internet. As you can probably see from the feed, my internet speed is not the greatest, and I'm actually in a pretty, fast internet area for where we live. So our board, right off the bat, asked a writing team to come up with some arts activities that students could do even if they didn't have internet. So No video links, nothing like that that was going to eat up bandwidth or that wouldn't even be viewable. Like a lot of people here can't even stream Netflix. So we created some low-tech assignments. So just for as an example, interview a relative, as I was referring to earlier, about their musical tastes and compare them to your own musical tastes. So that was one of the assignments. So then even since then, students who don't have great internet can still continue with one of these weekly low-tech assignments that they can even do on a pencil and paper basis, and then take a photograph and send in to me. So that's how my board has approached it and how I've applied that to my own teaching.
And Dianne actually did a little video all about that particular assignment for the MusiCounts Learn Remote Music Education blog series, which you can find on musicounts.ca/musicountslearn. So if you want to kind of apply some of the things that Dianne's talking about, you can find her ideas archived there on our website. Kim, now I want to go to you about this because I know that it's a bit of a different situation in Alberta.
It is very much a different situation. It was quite surprising to me to hear at the beginning of all of this, when we shut down our schools, our government actually took a different approach and basically shut them down right away for the year. What happened though was, for the first few weeks or 2 weeks when there was some unknown, is some music teachers weren't allowed to reach out, observing the connection with someone else. Some of those teachers were reassigned to support core subject areas. Thanks, has not been completely the case now to reach out to their students, but even in elementary and junior high still, they are supporting core teachers. There is our division is very small. It's basically my husband who teaches high school in the community and myself, and we work together, and they've allowed us to, full on reach out to our students. But it's not the same everywhere. Some of the larger divisions, that's not the case. We aren't allowed to ask them to do anything for marks or for grading. We have to just suggest, activities and stay connected with our students. So it's a bit different all over the province.
Yeah, and I know we were going to save questions till the end, but there's one that came through from Heather Richardson that kind of makes sense to talk about right now. So she asks, what percentage of your students are buying into and participating in music assignments or activities when music class is not considered a core subject or something mandatory that they have to do?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's not the greatest all the time. I would say that I get about 40% to 60% depending on the challenge. Our O Canada challenge for Music Monday was very well received, but some of the next one that I did after that for Mother's Day, not so much.
Mark, how about things in BC?
Well, I find it interesting, the question that Heather has asked, and in some of the language that's been used. For example, using the term core or academics, that we're only going to focus on those. Well, there's a substantial academic nature to music education. We all hold degrees in it. There's a whole body of research and body of knowledge. So I find that a little bit strange sometimes. And I think that right now, what I'm seeing in my school district, what I'm hearing from colleagues across the province, is that they're finding interesting ways to keep students engaged with the tools or resources that their school district is providing as maybe an initial step. And then they're learning from other colleagues, that there is a lot of teacher-to-teacher peer support going on right now to come up with some of the the ideas that people are looking for. And I would say the experience that I'm having with a distinct group of students is that whether it's been phoning them or it's been a video call or however we've been managing to communicate, they're happy to do it. They're really happy that they have one thing that they care about that's maybe the thing that's the most important aspect of their identity, that they're able to keep engaging with that thing. So, I mean, I was troubled when I saw other provinces and other parts of the world where teachers were being told, we're only going to focus on this narrow portion of a student school experience. We're not going to think about whole child and what their whole experience can be. And I feel like that maybe does a disservice to what things look like when we go back someday, and to attending to, you know, the emotional needs of a student. We all know wherever we are that we are often the most important adult in a student's life at school. And there's a lot of school connectedness that is nurtured through music rooms all across the country and around the world. So I think that we need to be a central part of things, and maybe for those provinces that opted to slow things down on the music side, that they see an opportunity between now and the end of June, that this is the right time to make sure that we are engaged so that our students return back in the fall with some, you know, distinct feeling of normalcy, because they know what they're going to get from us, and they know that we're still there with them.
Yeah, of course. That's a great perspective, Mark. Andrew, what's your take on all of this? I'm curious to hear what you think, you know, if a teacher is kind of in an awkward position where, you know, they're kind of being told that music is not essential, music is an elective, it's not core, you know, what can teachers do if they're kind of put in that uncomfortable situation?
Well, I just in the Facebook feed here, I just posted in an article that I was sent to me by a good friend of mine here in Newfoundland, Labrador. New Zealand principals are asking for more music because they recognize that at this troubled time, music is something that the students need more of. They need more arts. You know, we focus on the idea of STEM, where it should be STEAM, and include the arts into that. I think that like at some point today we'll probably talk about what things will look like as we return to school in September. Maybe that will be a hybrid model where there will be some students physically going to school and some students will be at home, or whatever that will be. But the times that we have students, whether they're physically with us in the same room or they're online, we can't squander the opportunity to make music with them, because it is such an important part of their development as a whole person. You know, we're preaching to the choir here with this. I think that anybody who's listening in here today is convinced that music is an important part of all of our students' development. So I can't entertain the idea of not making it mandatory, so important. So, and I will fight that till the cows come home. You know, but one of the things too that I wanted to mention about what's happening here in Newfoundland, Labrador, we have our amazing music, our amazing arts teachers here in our province. We're rallying together to work together as a collective to build our everything we need in order to be able to offer fantastic online learning in the fall, because we are not opening until September. That's one thing that's happening with all of our teachers. And I see a lot of people on the feed here today, and good to see you. And I'm sure I'll be talking to some of them later today, because we're doing a lot of stuff together, and I encourage you to keep doing it. But at the post-secondary level as well here in Newfoundland, Labrador, we have Memorial University. Now we have the luxury of only having one university in our province, and our teacher development program is being very aggressively retooled to accommodate the needs of these new pre-service teachers. So they are taking the courses that are on the books now and have been on the books for some time, and they're retooling them to make sure that the teachers that hit the streets in 2021 and 2022 are well equipped to take advantage of all of the things that they have to do because of where we are right now, but also incorporate these fantastic new tools, these new strategies that are being offered to us now, that because we've been doing it the same way for so long, we've been neglecting some of the things that are online and available to us. So what are these? You know, there are so many things that we're going to be able to find over the coming months that you're going to say, holy cow, I can't believe I ever taught music without having that. And I'm never going back. Maybe down the road you'll be back to your shoulder-to-shoulder choir singing, but these great new things that you found to do online, they're going to be incorporated into your practice. So
Absolutely.
the post-secondary level here now, I would encourage all of the teachers across our country to encourage the post-secondary teacher development programs to accommodate this, to make sure teachers are leaving with the skills they need. Don't be reactive. It's got to be, you got to move now on it. Don't squander the time we have.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Andrew. I think this is a good time for us to move on to topic number 3, which is really concerned about what we've already been talking about, is what we know. We can kind of start to put together what this means for music education right now. We're all kind of in it to win it. We're all trying to make it happen. We're all learning new things together. But what will the lasting impact of all of this mean for music education when schools reopen in September, whether that be a mixed delivery mode or if we're all back in September? So I'm curious to hear your predictions, your thoughts, your concerns, your hopes about that. Mark, do you want to start?
Yeah, I just sort of, it strikes me as you're asking that question that the 4 of us have all at different times in our career had to sit down with an administrator and plead our case for funding. And one thing that strikes me right now is that there was a time where I had a parent who wrote to me and said, my son has to share this French horn with another student, and yes, they each have their own mouthpiece, but is that really okay? And at the time, and for years, we've all said, yeah, we clean the mouthpieces, it's fine. Now we have a situation on our hands where should an administrator ask us if it's okay to share, we might have to point them to what's going on in the world right now and say, we're trying to empower students to learn where they are with the right tools. That means getting that equipment home with them sometimes. That means not depending on a sharing situation for health and safety reasons. There's a lot of different things that could go on with a change to music education, and certainly we've seen the rise of the virtual choir embraced by a lot of folks, and I know that there's 2 sides to that. There's the folks who say, but that's not choir. It's not in the moment. It's not a living experience or lived experience in that moment with others. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is that kids are still making music and they're still engaging with others to be creative and to express themselves. I think no matter how we come back, we need to look at what the balance would be between performance in music and engagement in music. And performance is engagement, but engagement can be so many more things as well. And if we're thinking broadly, then I think we have a really good chance of reinforcing our position in the school system.
Kim, in September or whenever, when students are back in your school and you're in your band room, what do you anticipate? What's going to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the $1 million question. I mean, like Mark said, I've spent a long time, over 30 years, fighting for music education and funding and its place in schools. I would say optimistically that we've seen through this COVID-19 crisis that music is important, more important than ever, because that's where people are turning during this time. As far as how it's going to look in the school, that's definitely what keeps me up at night. I say we invest in plexiglass stocks, but in my school, all my students have their own instruments. Luckily, we've built that up over time, and they all have their own large instruments at home, but there's those instruments at school. So again, there's money. There's money that we have to consider as well. I agree with Mark. I think that engagement in music is the most important thing. Like, most of my students don't grow up to be professional musicians. I just want them to be music consumers and to enjoy music. Having said that, I worry that if we don't keep performance and music in the forefront, that what will the music scene look like 10 or 20 years from now? Will we have, the opportunity to enjoy beautiful music played by, fabulous players? So I think that, again, like he said, it's a balance, and I mean, I'm hoping for the best. If we I have a big band room, so if they make the classes smaller, maybe I can do it. I'm not so sure about the flute players, but and I actually am quite excited to see that there's lots of research being funded on what what we can do. Like I'm part of a group called Women Band Directors International. We have an Alberta chapter now, and I know from speaking to women on there that there's lots of research being funded, and I really appreciate that people are working on that topic. So
Yeah.
not a great answer, but I honestly don't
No,
know.
I mean, that's the best we can do at this point, right? A
Yeah,
question
yeah.
from someone who's watching that makes sense to bring up right now is Nikki Waite asks, how can we advocate? Because I know internally at MusiCounts, we're kind of bracing for the fact that, with all the government spending that's happening right now, it's not completely unrealistic to expect that some music budgets may suffer come the fall when everything is kind of tightened up. So does anyone have any advice for teachers so they can raise the profile of music, so they can fight to make sure that music's place in their school remains intact the same way that it was pre-COVID?
I would say that anybody out there who's a teacher or an administrator, or even if you're a parent who has previously been a music teacher or any kind of teacher, the Coalition for Music Edu Canada, in cooperation with a whole bunch of other organizations, including MusiCounts, has a great survey up right now that's gathering a bunch of data on music education across the country. The more buy-in to that survey, the better, I think, and the coalition will have a lot of the ammunition it will need to also lobby on behalf of music education across the country. So I would say that would be a great start. I would also say that if parents, if your avid parent music group, I don't have one here at my school, but I know that a lot of places do, the parents hold the power. So if
Yes.
parents are lobbying for music, there's lots of ways that they can do that, by writing letters, by posting to social media, all of those types of things, even just bragging about the cool stuff their kids are doing right now. Oh, my kid wrote a song. Look at that. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Simple things like that people will pay attention to, and people can't ignore us if we're if we're loud. Anyway, that's all I have to
Yeah.
say about that.
Andrew, it
I actually
looks
agree
like you
with
want to say
Dianne.
something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Kim.
You go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I was just going to say that I agree with Dianne, and I think social media. I mean, I'm an I'm the oldest one here for sure, but we have a Facebook page, and anytime we do anything, we share it in the community. Anytime there's like the New Zealand story that Andrew was referencing, just getting it out and getting the parents to be educated on what's going on, and also yes, getting them motivated. Get the kids outside playing in the yard so that the community is aware that this is important, and get your parents to fight for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can add something too, the I think that the foundation to good advocacy is going to be, at this stage right now today, is going to be knowing that we can do this, and because the first question that people ask, how do you teach music online? That's the first thing they say. Well, if we can say, well, why, I don't know. Well, then forget your advocacy. We need to figure that out. So I think that we need to fundamentally get some work done. I heard today recently that Shopify had all these targets for technical developments that they were trying to achieve in 2020, that they wanted to achieve to make their business better online. And these are new technological advances. And they had them scheduled for the whole year, but they're all done because they had to be done. These new technical advances had to be done because we are in the middle of the pandemic and everybody's ordering stuff online. Well, we're music teachers, and we are also in the middle of a pandemic, and people are ordering music education, and we need to step up and do what Shopify did, and we need to get all of our ducks in a row. So the thing is, in saying that, I'm not going to say that and leave you. What I'm going to say is we need to look at what our priorities are. And whenever we talk about music education, the first thing people say is, well, boy, how are you going to get a symphony orchestra online? How are you going to get my choir online? How are you going to get my jazz ensemble online? Of course, if we think about a mountain range of difficult problems that we have, those are the peaks. Those are the hardest things to accomplish is how do you get a symphony orchestra online? And these may be things that maybe might not be attainable in the next few months. So let's put that aside. That's because that's so high profile. That's the first thing that people think about. But the fact is that any good school-based orchestra, band, jazz ensemble has this performance opportunities, but below it are a deep and wide array of curriculum outcomes that we met every day that are broad, holistic outcomes. Those are not that hard to get online. Literacy, experiential opportunities for students. There's so many things that we can do online that are very doable right now. So if any administrator says to me, Andrew, can you do music education online? I'll go, yeah. Let's have a look at the curriculum documents. And I'll pull them out and I'll say, here's how we do this one. And here's how we do that one. Here's how we do this one. How we do. And you know what? I would say that if we sat down with any music teacher, any passionate music teacher, and you went down through your list of curriculum outcomes that you have from your ministry, you would probably have a way to getting all these online now. Now, in the fall, if it turns out that we have a hybrid method, a hybrid model, where we have some opportunities for students to be physically in front of one another in schools, I think that those opportunities, we need to be making music, because that's the thing that the students are going to connect with. And Kim was just saying it. It's so important for them to be making music. So if we have an opportunity to get those students in front of one another, and we have that rare chance that they can make music, let's do it. Make the music on that day. Make it for real. And then all the other things that are part of the nuts and bolts of learning music, do those online. You get them in the physical location, have them making the music, have them doing things. That's what you want. And then use all these great tools that we have around us for the work that we can do online. And that's still very compelling work, and it's work that when the time comes and you go back to teaching your band again, you're going to say, I'm not leaving those, because they were really cool and they work. And when the students show up to my rehearsals now, I don't have to go over bowings. I don't have to go over all these things that are now covered through all these things that we have online. So we'll never be the same again. So I feel really good about where we're going. We just need to get our ducks in a row, get organized, and not focus on the things that we can't do, because that's easy. We can focus on the things that we can, and it is compelling what we can do. So let's get at it.
And I think a lot of that goes back to what Dianne was saying as well. We need to be kind of loud about it. It's so easy for people to assume that music just can't happen. It's so easy for someone to be like, oh, you can't meet as a band? Oh, well then music education has no place in this new reality. But music is everything. Music is science. Music is social studies. Music is math. And it's being really articulate about those realities that we know so well. We can preach to the choir all we want, but we need to figure out a way that we can preach to, the people who aren't in the choir right now, but hopefully they'll sign up soon.
Nick, if I can comment on that, there's two questions that Andrew asked that are the really common advocacy questions that come up initially. One is, how are we going to do this? And the other was, can we do this? Well, if you start with how are we going to do this, the assumption is that we can. And so that's a great way to lead that conversation with your colleagues, with your administrator, with your district. And I think about the power and influence of our provincial associations, the MEAs all across the country, in how they can work along with our teachers' unions, along with the Ministry of Education or Department of Education. All across the country, there are these ways to bring people together with that disposition that we can do this. We just need to figure out how. And in the role that I have right now, focusing on career education, like you just mentioned, that music has connections with math and with science and with other subject areas. Here's a great opportunity to think about what career education curriculum we have in our province and figure out what we could be doing to make that connection. That's what really, I think, empowers the position of music education within a school and within our societies. I it's a bit of a joke, I suppose, but no one ever shows up with protest math. They show up with protest songs. We haven't seen any televised hours of literature being read aloud to make us feel better. Maybe there's some stuff online with teachers doing read alouds with books, and that stuff is great. But the reality is that what so often is bringing us together is music. And if we understand that that's the power and influence that we have as music teachers, we can certainly rally our students, their parents, family, and community to make sure that when we come out of all of this, that music education hasn't been victimized by the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know any protest math either. I want to read. I want to read you a very short quote that a good friend of ours here in Newfoundland, Labrador, Kelly Walsh, said recently. Kelly is the artistic director for Shalloway Youth Choir. Kelly said, "If a choir is only about singing and performing, there will be no choir for a while. If a choir is about teaching and learning, growing, connecting, community, cultural exploration, transmission, and innovation, we will find a way to have choir." So if your band is only about performing, you may have an issue. But there's a lot more to band. There's a lot more to band. So I think Kelly's comment on that really nails it, because everybody here, I'm sure, you don't want to just perform. We want to take our band, but what is band now? What is band? And Andrea Rose, Dr. Andrea Rose commented in the Facebook comment. They've relabeled one of their courses in teacher development, teaching from the podium, to teaching from the virtual podium. What is the podium? What is the band? We got to rethink these things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys and everyone who's watching, but I feel optimistic, I feel energized, I feel inspired, and that's probably a good place to end if that's how we're all feeling. So I just want to thank our 4 panelists so much for taking the time, donating their time to have this conversation. I think it was so productive, so terrific. So thank you all so much. To everyone who tuned in, thank you for joining this conversation. Thank you for being a part of this national dialogue that we're trying to foster. It's really special. If you have any ideas, any suggestions for future town halls, things that MusiCounts can be doing to help better support music education in Canada in this moment and in the future, reach out. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. And I know we didn't get to all of the questions that were submitted, but keep the conversation going on the comments. We'll be there. We'll be answering. And yeah, until next time, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay well, and have a great day. See you, folks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.